All right, it's Friday night, and I'm still full of piss and vinegar, and I'm ready to break down what a day in the life is like of a degenerate on this upcoming episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. It's your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you, well, live if you're watching, which nobody is, but when you're watching it later from my little makeshift studio here I have in my shitty little apartment that I live at. We're going to get ourselves out of here at some point. But anyways, thank you for tuning in. Thanks you for anybody who likes, subscribes, all that good stuff. I just, you might notice that, for being at this hour of the day, my eyes are a little clearer than usual. That's because we're on day 4 of my refined version of Sober October. Gave up booze a while ago, giving a little break from the wacky tobacco. I've been a pain in the ass to be with for the first couple of days. I was actually going to also quit nicotine during that whole phase, but that was probably going to lead to a jail sentence at some point. So still got my new product here, not being paid to do anything, not really being paid by anybody. Actually, I have to make money the old fashioned way. We'll put it this way. I had a nice little blackjack session. I just posted a video on that. So I just lie to myself and tell myself I get paid $100 to do this episode. But I broke down trip from the ride home from work and, how I just filmed myself playing video blackjack. The goal was to turn 100 into 200, and that's exactly what I did. And if you want to watch the hand-by-hand recount of it, I'm trying to find new ideas for more genuine content. Me sitting here talking sports, who the fuck am I to anybody? It's nothing, but cool shit like that. Like, people will watch fucking other people play video games. I don't understand that whatsoever, but there's people that make a lot of money doing it. And I love watching degenerates or watching people gamble. I just also like to see them win money and not lose it all. So I have a casino not too far from me. I was thinking about doing live streams, but the problem is that they have music playing in the casino. Not 100% sure on the copyright rules on that. I'm pretty sure that that's not allowed. I know I got one copyright strike against me. That was when I was in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's an amazing ballpark. We'll touch base on what happened at that ballpark a couple days ago, or actually it was just yesterday. Gotta get my little nicotine fix here. I had the closer entrance there, which the closer entrance has become part of the entertainment value production of a baseball game. It kind of sucks if you go to a game that doesn't have a save opportunity. I don't know if they have quite that display. I actually got to witness a Cardinals Ryan Helsley entrance, which seemed like that they were still a work in progress on that as far as nailing it all down. The timing on it was a little bit off, but still really cool seeing everything, turn red and all that fun stuff. So I, did my little blackjack thing, and, 24 hours in a day, that's kind of the point of this whole thing, is that for those of you that are wondering, like, wow, you do this podcast and it sucks. It's because I do it all by myself. It's really fucking hard. And I don't have a schedule that's very, very easy to work with. Like, I just started talking to a new female, and I've already kind of gotten into the whole, well, this is the schedule that I have just for the job that actually pays me. I don't even get into all the other bullshits, but like, let's work around this. I'm pretty flexible when it comes to, I'm a warm-blooded male, like the occasional attention from the old females. So got to see what's going on with that. But seems like a real good girl. Hopefully that works out. But if not, then on to the next one, as we say. So let's just kind of break down what a day in the life of mine looks like. I'm actually I must have crashed, or maybe the collective summer that I had is kind of taking its toll on me. I used to be someone that was like sleeping 5-6 hours was like an excessive night of sleep for me. We're starting to turn that into closer to 7 to 8 hours right now. I don't know if that's the season changing. Again, I live in upstate New York. We're starting to get that little fall chill in the air. But for me to be able to talk about the things that I talk about and be able to, put some stuff out here. Like, the reason I'm doing this live is that that way I'm forced to do it. If I was just recording this right now, I probably would have hit stop and probably would have had to start all over again. Then eventually I just would have got sick of it and not done it. I can't tell you the number of episodes I have gone to record that I just never end up doing anything because, I start self-critiquing on there. This is where the things like having a producer would be lovely. I don't have one of those, but if anybody is watching and would like to learn how to do all that stuff or knows how to do that stuff, one of the beautiful things of modern technology, you don't have to be here. Although I do like when people are here because I read body language, and that kind of gives me an idea of, okay, am I losing them? Am I gaining them? Using those visual cues, it's kind of like almost like playing poker, but the person's actually not trying to hide their emotions from you. But if you know somebody well enough, you can tell when they're trying to hide their emotions from you, I'll say. But in an ideal day, that's just an ideal day, and very few things are ideal. Where you know, at one point in time, I used to be so busy that if I had to take a shit that I wasn't expecting, it could throw my whole schedule off. That's the kind of shit we're dealing with, no pun intended on there. But if an ideal day, I like to be up and at it 6:30 or so, and you just say, okay, get up, go to the gym. Well, okay, like that's the whole thing of that 6:30 doesn't mean I'll be at the gym at 6:31. That means I got to get ready. I got to maybe, make my protein shake for afterwards. I got to maybe have a little bit of caffeine to get me woken up, maybe get some water in me, maybe just anything. Just getting out from my units down to my car, that takes me a couple minutes. Then I got to drive to there. So now even we're already up to usually about 7:15 or so. I really, really, really try to get in and out of the gym in like 45 minutes. I actually try to do this to show the people that are there in the morning for social hour versus, actually just trying to get your work in to get about your day. Really try to hammer that one out. Don't do anything crazy. Obviously, I'm not a bodybuilder or anything like that, but I'm holding up well for a guy who's gonna be 40 next year. I think, I'll be like RFK. Nothing was funnier to me than when RFK was doing the incline bench press, with his shirt off, and he's actually able to, he's still looks like he's got some cut to him, or he's in his 70s or whatever. And you have people clowning that one. I'll be the guy that maybe looks decent with his shirt off in a couple of years or so, but I'm not going to ever be a fucking bodybuilder. I'm never going to be a strong guy. So I go. But then you get the gym, then you got to get back, then you got to, eat all your food. You got to, load up on the protein, shower, all that good stuff. God forbid I fucking maybe, decide to, rub one out in the bathroom or something like that. Got really, really good at that one. I'd be willing to bet I could probably, I feel like talking about this, but, got good at being like, listen, I'm not in it for fun. I'm just in it to release the poison sometimes. But, that's maybe I just went a little too far on that one. This is the type of thing I probably would have then stopped recording and just gone on to the next episode or tried starting it all over again. But it's live, it's there, can't do anything about it. Just got to live with it. I work, as I told you guys, I'm a sales guy. Don't really feel like discussing the company I work for or really what I do, because it wouldn't be too hard to figure out what I do. If you know what I do and where I do it and you need to buy something, let me know. I'd like to help you out with that one. But, I got a 20-minute commute or so to work. I don't ever really like to be somebody that rolls in on two wheels and has to, race through the parking lot to be able to punch in on time or anything like that. Yes, I still have to punch a time clock, whatever. So give myself a couple minutes because, you never know what's going to happen there. So, I'm eating into that. So I have to work. I work a 9-hour, or usually it's a 9-hour shift, get a half-hour lunch in there, which I don't ever really take, because when you're 100% commission-based sales, you're actually always on the clock as far as I'm concerned. And that is what I do. Why do I do it that way? Well, one, I like the money that I can make doing it. Two, it's the only way to get an honest day's work out of me. If I ever get paid hourly, if I was ever salary, basically I'll be completely upfront and honest. I'm one of those guys that's probably going to find, or this is the way I perceive things. Me having this attitude, from what I understand, probably still trumps what a lot of people put forth as their best efforts. But I'm just trying to do enough to not have my boss yell at me and to be able to keep my job. It's kind of like the old Office Space thing. I have this many bosses, which is why, so if I make a mistake, I have to hear about this many times. That alone is the only reason to motivate me to do my job well. Other than that, and the fear of losing, or, the whole scene, you know what it is. He's basically saying a person will only work hard enough to keep their job. It's kind of, I hate saying that, but with commission based, it's like, okay, I have an incentive to do more. If I bust my ass, there's more money in my paycheck. If the more deals I close, the more money's in my paycheck. I don't just sit there as an hourly employee and just go, yeah, help yourself. That's called a clerk. I'm not a clerk. I'm a sales guy. Even though I'm kind of not the most salesiest of sales guys, I fucking hate salespeople. Okay. Let's be real here. You want to buy something, I'm the gatekeeper of it. I need you to talk to me so that way I can wet my beak into the transaction. Most people know what they want to do. I mean, especially in the industry that I work, I can fake it till you make it. I've been doing that for about a year. And I probably still, I'm beating myself up on that one. There's a certain standard of excellence I might have where I consider myself an expert on something. And well, it's kind of funny that I make my living doing something I somewhere between a novice and professional, I guess. But sales, thankfully, as a guy who can talk to himself, on a podcast, sales comes pretty easy to me in the sense of that, treat people well, they treat you well. It's just kind of, it's not always the case in the business that I work in, but generally that holds true in just about anything. I've often thought that I will always make this challenge. I feel like if you dropped me on any sales floor in America selling any kind of product, and in a retail setting, I will say, as long as I don't need to know how to, process anything, I can always figure out a way to get a person interested in selling things. It's very easy. You find out something about that person, and then you kind of you just if you listen to a person enough, they're gonna tell you what you want. Okay, that's really the big thing. Trying to force something down somebody's throats, yeah, there might be a little bit of a batting average to it, but I always find the idea that you catch more bees with honey than with vinegar or something like that. Probably butchered that one. Probably should do a little prep, but that's where a producer would be nice. So if anyone wants to ever join me, volunteer, I get a viewer here and there. They click in, they get the hell out of here. Is what it is. People watch it sometimes on the live stream afterwards. Just getting the reps out there. But typically that gets me to this. So now I'm already through all my day. Now I haven't even gotten into if I have anything to do around my house. Again, I live by myself. So literally everything keeping this place afloat is done by me. When I make food, I have to do the dishes. When I change in and out of clothes, I have to do the laundry. All of these little things, just going to the store to get things. All of these little things add up minute by minute to where suddenly I'm like, where the fuck did 24 hours go? Because as a guy who also, by the way, is on top of things of knowing who's playing and what the odds are on stuff and how to actually have enough of an idea how to talk about them. Well, now we're into where I get out of work. And also I like to say on top of, we're in a very tumultuous time in this country. I have quite a few different podcasts and shows that I kind of stay on top of, which where someone with the ADD like I have, it's great because multitasking has to be my thing. I don't just when I'm at the gym, I'm also listening to something. I'm actively doing that. While I'm watching a sporting event, I'm scrolling through my phone, looking at stats on other things. It's kind of a tough balancing act. You can imagine why I have to smoke a lot of pot because it's really, really tough to shut the brain down when you do that. So it becomes kind of the hell that I have. Right now, I'm just kind of railing at it. I mean, it's 11 o'clock my time here. In an ideal situation, I might get out of here at, might turn in around 12:31 or so. Then on Saturdays, we got Saturdays Saturdays and Sundays are the biggest degenerate days because we got soccer over in Europe that's starting like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Those are, parlays are dangerous. Don't really recommend those, but with soccer, sometimes they're kind of fun. You get some boosts, there's some little things you can throw together, just something to kind of get the blood pumping, get that adrenaline flowing, because around noon at this time in this part of the country, you get college football kickoff. And actually, while that's going on, I usually have to have live wagering is usually one of my favorite things to do. I can't watch the games, can't really look at yards per play stuff. I'm actually busy on Saturdays, believe it or not, doing my regular job, keeping all of that aside, but just having that little glimmer, something to check in on every now and again. And then I'm getting out, I'm watching all kinds of recaps and stuff like that. It's becomes overwhelming at times. It certainly is, but that's what I do to be able to. Me talking about things is sometimes difficult. If somebody asks me about something, it's usually like, how much time do you have? Probably could get better at tightening things up, but through reps and all that shit, we'll work on that for everybody. But yeah, so usually if I could really go well, I would probably start off my day at like 6 o'clock or so. West Coast sports going on. I mean, I try to. That's where I have this thing I kind of do for maybe like the last hour of my living room time where I have my eyes closed. I'm not necessarily asleep, but I can hear what's going on in the game. I feel like I respond to what's going on in the game. And then typically if I hear a big moment, that's when I pop out of it and get to it. But plenty of big moments. I guess I just kind of gave you a little glimpse into the day of my life. Like I said, I did the little blackjack session tonight, which again, I could do those on live streams, but just to kind of give you an idea, if you're going to a casino, you got to ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to do? And I don't think enough people do that. They're just, I'm just trying to have a good time. We're going to hang out here and stuff. I can't tell you that. I think that it probably confuses at least the security at the casino that's no matter what, I'm in and out of there in like 20 minutes, half. Like I buy a cup of coffee And I'm very particular about when I drink my coffee about the temperature that it is. Usually fresh out, it's a little bit too hot. I don't want to burn my tongue because that's a great way to ruin your day to start off by burning your tongue with coffee. Which, by the way, I drink it black because that's how men drink it. That's, it's the way that the nectar of the gods intended it. If you want cream and sugar, fucking drink chocolate milk, okay? And then just have a fucking 5-hour energy or something. Which, by the way, don't even know how much caffeine I consumed earlier in the day, but this is what I'm like at 11 o'clock. So you can imagine why I used to smoke a shitload of pot to try and calm the engines down a little bit, try and just sit there and just maybe blank out a little bit. It's very, very difficult for me to daydream or have any kind of thoughts like that. It's something I think that's really affecting creativity in this world, to be honest with you. I remember when I was younger, I used to get bored. Don't even know what that's like anymore. I can always find something to do now. They used to kind of feel some creative thinking. And well, I mean, even like when I'm not doing something, I'm thinking about what would be a good idea for this right here. But then the execution of that is usually a little bit difficult because I'm a fucking idiot when it comes to using the programs that I have here, which is why I have this kind of fairly low budget podcast. I've invested a little bit of money into it, but if it doesn't, I've done worse things with $1,000. Sadly, we'll just see it. The idea of just working to get it back. But yesterday I just kind of like I used to try to watch multiple sporting events at one time. You can have a loose idea what's going on, but you can't say you watch both games. I looked at it as that with the football game going on, we had the Falcons and the Bucks yesterday, which allegedly people said was one of the best Thursday night games ever. I think that's always, everyone's always a prisoner of the moment. I think people confuse close scores and down to the wire ends with being good football games sometimes. What I was watching in that game, I didn't really feel like if you let Kirk Cousins throw for 500 yards on you, there's some bad football being played. I'm sorry, but that's just my assessment. God awful tackling. That's just the nature of the NFL now, but that's kind of what happens when, you play on Thursday nights and you don't let guys practice in full pads anymore. So different conversation though. But we did have the MLB playoffs, which is really killing me because that goes on during the day. This is like this 1 week of just gold, really, that starting in the afternoon, we've got the biggest and the best of baseball games, which I'm sorry, but playoff hockey is one thing. Playoff baseball is the anxiety of playoff baseball. I mean, playoff hockey is just like buckle your seatbelts, 20 minutes at a clip, and then, get your breath in the intermissions. I think that because the way a hockey game is structured, it certainly is very, very intense, having that, nonstop action and then the breaks is kind of like baseball. The whole thing is that something big is going to happen at some point. You just never know when it is. It could be any pitch. And last night, that pitch was a 3-1 count by Devin Williams to Pete Alonso and the fucking Mets, who me and a friend of mine who sometimes watches this, if you're watching, hey, you know who you are, bud. Always had a pleasure. We learned a lot from each other over the years, I'll say. One thing that we learned, and there are other people that this doesn't apply to, but there's always that one kryptonite team. And for me, it's not even the team, it's the games. This is a gambling rule that I'm just passing off that I've learned. I mean, parlaying is always a risky endeavor anyways. It doesn't even matter if you get it right on that game. I swear I have never, ever in my life won a parlay where I had anything involving the Mets, whether it be their opponents, whether it be them, whether it be an over, whether it be an under, whether it be a prop. If there is anything involved with the Mets in a fucking parlay of mine, no chance. Might as well have just donated it. Every now and again, I forget about these rules, or the inner degenerate starts tricking me a little bit and starts saying, "Oh, I think that the Mets. I think that they got this one. I think that they can. I think they're going to take down Milwaukee. I like the matchup. Let's see how it goes." Mets are up ahead. I parlayed the Mets and Starling Marte to get a hit, and I parlayed the Padres and Fernando Tatis to get a hit. Marte got a hit in his second at bat. Tatis got a hit in his first at bat. Padres are up 5-1, looking like they're pretty comfortably ahead. And there I am. Yes, I'm talking about game 2. I know I'm bouncing around. Game 2 that night. And the Mets, I'm sitting there. They're up 3-2 in the top of the 8th inning. And I'm just kind of like, all right, let's just got to get a couple more outs. And then it just didn't happen. I might be even mixing up the scores. I mean, it's tough for me to really organize stuff. That's why I don't have a greatest show, because doing show prep in the time it takes me to prep this, the stuff I plan on talking about becomes old news. I'm already talking about yesterday's news right now on this show, but had that little gut punch on Wednesday night would be Thursday night. Just didn't want anything to do with that game. That there is something I can say that, it's nice when a baseball game is that interesting to me that I don't need to have money on it. I can still find it fascinating. And that game was nothing for 7 or 8 innings, I believe. And then, yep, it's I believe was it Matan that they was the last night. I'm getting the games mixed up, I guess. But gives up 2 home runs, and yeah, the Mets just they blew that one, cost me my parlay. But then the next day down the road, and honestly, it was one of those things that I got to notice this. I wasn't really paying attention to social media during the game so much. After the fact is when I thought this was hilarious. Everybody on my Twitter feed and on my, which by the way, geez, I forgot I had the banner up here to give you my banner here to give you all my little social information. If you want to follow me, send me an email, all that good stuff, appreciate it when you do. Yeah, as I'm seeing my NFL record, we'll get into that in a second, but everybody was bashing on Pete Alonso, and rightfully so. He's been kind of, I always said you can just pencil him in for 40 home runs if he's healthy. He only had 34 this year. Was a little bit of a letdown on my fantasy team for sure. Really struggling down the stretch. Had a big dropped foul ball in the game, which thankfully didn't cost the Mets anything. But he finally gets that moment, and we see this in the videos, the game within the game of baseball. Now, this is done the conventional way, but you can see that the Mets hitting coach has picked up on a tell on Devin Williams. Devin Williams had given up 3 runs all year, I believe, and he's a really, the changeup is his go-to pitch. Apparently, the Mets are one of the best teams at hitting a changeup. 3-1 count to Alonso, and most of the pitches that he missed with weren't even close. He throws a changeup away, down and away a little bit, and Pete Alonso, I said this where it's okay. There's certain major league hitters, right-handed hitters that can take that ball opposite field. You got to be really strong to reach down and pop a ball down that way. I remember when MVP Paul Goldschmidt used to be able to do stuff like that. Haven't seen that so much, but Alonso, most of his home runs, I think it was 3 home runs out of his 34 were what I could say to right field. And for him to come up in that moment and it's just everybody forgets everything all of a sudden. Alonso gets the heroics. And then the game ends with a nice little double play there. Francisco Lindor still playing amazing shortstop with a bad back that caused him to miss 9 games. The Mets are, I don't have anything against the Mets. The Mets fans, they don't like me because I'm a Cardinals fan. The Mets, aside from, I think it was 99 or 2000 where they ended up going on the Subway Series, beating the Cardinals in the NLCS. That's really the only thing I can ever say. The Mets hurt me. There was a moment I could kind of say when people are saying, "Oh, it's about time Pete Alonso did something clutch." I'll still tell you right now, I've been to, that I have logged in on my app that I can at least know of. I've been to 25 baseball games in my life. I went to 16 this summer. Pete Alonso hit a walk-off home run against the St. Louis Cardinals on May 19th of 2022. You can look up the game right now. I've watched that clip because I've been trying to see if you could see me and my buddy who was a Mets fan that we were at that game with, if you can see us in any broadcast. We were sitting in the 200 level, not the lowest level, but the next level up, which is right behind home plate. And I was looking, I found a couple of videos that people posted from the game that I just, I never found us in there. But I'm surprised you can't hear me yell fuck when that ball comes off the Pete Alonso's bat. You probably couldn't hear it because the crack of that bat was so loud. But he hits one into the second deck. I mean, I think that they used to my perception of how far balls go is off because they might have changed the way they hit tape measures or they do the tape measuring. Because the tape measuring came about during the steroid era where 500-foot home runs were kind of the norm. StatCast does something a little differently, but that ball was 447 feet, I think it was. It was a mile as far as I was concerned. There was nothing like knowing the second you hear that sound, game is over with. And that's what Pete Alonso did there. Will he be a Met next year? Who knows? But the Mets are going into, I love that this division series is set up as Mets and the Phillies, a nice hometown rival. I will tell you as I watch, and I have no reason to ever want to go to a football game because whenever I watch the clips or I just see all the buffoonery that goes on there. Went to a bunch of different ballparks, 14 of them this summer. Really only encountered one group of hostile people, I would say, and that was in Philadelphia. I sat in the 300 level of Philadelphia, and I was actually a little unsure about whether I should even wear my Cardinals hat there, but I just kind of wanted to be, well, if I'm not cheering for the Phillies, because I didn't bet the Phillies that day. Or actually, I bet the Phillies, I think, which lost, but I bet Bryce Harper to not get a hit in that game, which I didn't get made whatsoever. I was sitting next to these guys that just looked like they were straight out of like the fill-ins for It's Always Sunny or something like that. Just total Philadelphia. I'm listening to them talk, and they're just cracking me up a little bit. Down in front of me, there's a fucking guy wearing a Pete Alonso jersey. I was at a Blue Jays fucking Phillies game, and some guy is wearing a Pete Alonso jersey. Now, wearing a hat, that's one thing. I've seen some people that were wearing jerseys of their favorite team. Actually, they were Cardinals fans wearing like all 30 as like, telling you, hey, I'm just going to different ballparks, so I'm a Cardinals fan. Stuff like that is okay. Wearing a star player's jersey of an arrival to an opposing stadium, though, you're asking for trouble a little bit, and especially in Philadelphia. The way that I made friends with Philly fans, as I call them, because they're a very interesting creature for sure. Was finally at some point I just I heard them mocking the guy, and I was like, I said, boy, I wasn't sure whether I should wear this hat here, but that fucking idiot, what the hell's his deal? And they're like, yeah, see, this guy gets it. I became friends with the Philly fan. At one point, they were just during the game, they were just yelling, Alonso, you fucking suck, all this stuff. At one point, he turned around and smiled at the group, which I was just like, oh, that's really just pissed them off. They kept with the harassing. At one point, they were saying I remember seeing the one guy going, if he turns around and smiles again, we're gonna beat the fucking shit out of him. And I didn't think that they were kidding. I actually believed that was true. I wanted to kind of signal to the Alonso guy, hey, like, fun's over with. Don't touch your luck here. But that's gonna be an amazing series. I don't even think about parlaying. Like, I really wish, like, there are ways with betting apps that you can put certain limits on yourself, I guess. I don't know. I've never done it, but I've heard about it, I guess, or at least they say that there's these. I have to occasionally, check the box that I've read the responsible gaming agreements and all that stuff, just so they can check their boxes and say, see, we're educating our customers. We don't care, even though we're just giving them free crack, basically. But I was looking at the series prices, and I saw, and again, these vary from book to book, but when I saw it earlier, and I was never going to fire on it, but I do think it's a sexy pick. The Mets plus 170 against the Phillies. Now, the Phillies did have a slight advantage, I believe, in the head-to-head series, but the Mets, or the Mets only really beat the Phillies, or their best starters did well against the Mets. Taijuan Walker, who I hate that his career went the way it did, because he was a drug that I cannot quit coming up. I just always remember this is going to be the year he breaks out. And it wouldn't happen. Then one year they discovered that he had these bone spurs in his feet, and that was what his issue was. He got those taken care of. It still didn't matter. He may have had a good season here or there, but for the most part, it's been a letdown. He was 0-3 against the Mets this year. I severely doubt he's going to be. I don't even know if he's on any playoff rosters. Haven't done all the homework, obviously. The Phillies, aside from being a red-hot team to start the year, really were just kind of a middle-of-the-road team for most of the rest of the year. But then all the records have just reset. They're a little bit rested, and maybe that reset is good for them, because when you get down to it, I think the Phillies do actually have one of the better teams in all baseball. I didn't even realize this. I forgot. I bet them to win the National League a while back. I got them at like plus 230 or something like that. Not a good number considering what I could get now. But I remember just thinking, when these guys, I thought they were just going to continue to coast and be the number one seed. When you get to that short playoff series and you got Wheeler and Nola potentially pitching most of the, vast majority of those games, it does make life a little tough. The Mets, Cody Senga is starting game one. Let's see how that one goes. But the Mets, just a certain thing of that, I watched this. My favorite baseball team ever is the 2011 Cardinals. And there's just something of that when a team battles through adversity, they start thinking we can't be beat, or maybe they get hey, this is all house money right now. I don't know what it is, but the Mets are playing with that. They're a little scary. I actually so much so wanted to actually go. I had a chance to maybe if I wanted to go down to Baltimore for a playoff game last week. I didn't end up doing that. Probably worked out for the better. It would have been a long day, and it wouldn't have been the greatest baseball game. And I actually would have missed some other good games actually that same day. I think I would have missed Astros Tigers. We'll get into that one, I'm sure, which was a hell of a game, and the Tigers are just defying all the odds. But anyways, it was only like $80 to get a decent seat, and like wasn't even really a bad seat down in Baltimore. I went looking because one of my buddies being a Mets fan, and I'm like, hey, this would be a fun thing to do with your pal, root him on. He's a Mets fan. Not that he's a, diehard. He's a Mets Jets fan. He just really he chooses his favorite teams to be miserable. I think it's kind of like I compare it to Seinfeld when they asked George, I thought you didn't believe a God. And he says God has something against him, or God won't let me be successful. And they're like, I thought you didn't believe in God. He's like, no, I do for the bad stuff. That's kind of how I feel like that some sports fans are about their teams, Mets, Jets fans especially. But I was looking to see, it was $205 for a ticket to a playoff game, which again is kind of a decent thing, but I'm sitting in the fucking 500 level of a Phillies Mets game. I mean, don't get me wrong, the people watching a Spirits alone would be great. And I'm pretty sure I could probably film some pretty good footage of just fans interacting with one another. I might actually want to see the game a little bit though. I was looking at the viewpoints from there and I'm like, okay, cool. I can say that I was in the stadium. I'm not going to really, have the greatest time watching it. And especially when I'm going to have to spend that much money and deal with all the parking and the traffic and all that stuff, I just assume watch that game at home at this point. Now, if the Cardinals were playing in a game, I might feel a little differently, but you know what? Don't think I got to worry about the Cardinals playing postseason baseball for a little while. In fact, if they were offering odds right now, the Cincinnati Reds just signed Terry Francona to be their manager. I would bet the fucking Reds to win the NL Central next year. And I'm going to have that one docked on the radar because you get the collection of young talent that they have there, and then you get that grizzled veteran manager like Terry Francona who knows how to push all the right buttons. I think that's going to be, you got a star player like Ellie De La Cruz, got some decent Hunter Green, is it? I get the guy in Hunter Brown and Hunter Green. There's the guy in the Astros. There's the guy in the Reds. The guy on the Reds, which is funny because one's black, one's white. But for the sake of this, one's green, one's brown. Whoever's on the Reds, that's the guy that he's an ace. They can build around that. They got some moves they can make. And Francona, I think, is going to be a wonderful addition. Probably would have been a good addition for the Cardinals a while back, but oops. They're just going to be on their third manager. And since Tony La Russa or they're already on their third manager, they're going to be on their third manager from Matheny, which never thought we'd lived it, never thought we'd actually be like, okay, can we get Mike Matheny back versus having Ollie Marmol? But this isn't about the Cardinals, even though they got the logos in the background and everything. This is about who's actually playing baseball still. So the Mets, they just kind of have that gotta believe factor. But I will say, and I did this on my last episode here with William Bats, or William Bases as we called him. I just realized I could have called him Billy Bats. Fuck, that would have been beautiful. Good old Goodfellas reference there. I'll have to message him about that at some point. But I feel okay about the Mets there. Maybe it's an emotional hedge, and if the Phillies win, then so be it. I'm still alive with a ticket on them at plus 230 to win the NL. The real team that I have them actually to win the World Series is the other series we have in the NL. Another big rival. We have Dodgers and Padres, who, it's the Dodgers have kind of been the Padres' daddy a little bit, I guess you would say. But the Padres, I gave up on them at one point in the year, and rightfully so. They were a 500 baseball team for a while, and were just very much underachieving. And it's just like, hey, no matter what they do, they just can't make it happen. And then they just ripped it off the rest of the way. They're the best team in baseball, or they went I think they finished something like 15-14 over their last 64 games, something wild like that. Whatever it is, they've been really exceeding expectations. They are going into and this is a troubling stat I heard for the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty is your game one starter. I don't need to get into that whole spiel. I just know him from his time in St. Louis that just does not a big game pitcher. He didn't really do so well. I remember I lost a good chunk of money actually the last time that he faced the Padres with the same logic. Dylan Cease didn't have the greatest of starts, and then Ohtani was just Ohtani. I think the Dodgers are a little bit of a disadvantage right now when Ohtani is the hottest hitter the two hottest hitters in the planet. Three of them really, or two of them were Jose Ramirez and Shohei Ohtani. They had to sit for a week a little bit. Baseball players, that's not always the best thing. Like coming out of the All-Star break, I always just pretend everyone's record is 0-0 to an extent, because the team that was playing hot going into the break usually doesn't come out hot in the second half. A team that struggles into the break can come out. It's, just that little reset they can get. But I was looking at the Dodgers haven't had a starting pitcher record an out in the sixth inning in a really obscene amount of time. I believe they're really reliant on their bullpen, and their bullpen isn't exactly the greatest. Whereas San Diego, Michael King, I hate that the idea that the Yankees made the right move in getting Juan Soto. We'll never, ever disparage that. But Michael King looks like he could be a legit ace out there. He's he's mowing them down. He struck out 12 Braves, I think, the other day, which that's not a, that's a pretty good lineup to do that against. I mean, it's not as great as it could have been, but they're not a bunch of slouches there. He gets that. Fernando Tatis, again, you get the steroid, scandal. So we forget that he's a superstar player. Really just everybody on the Padres. The thing I like about them is that they don't strike out a lot. And that matters a lot in playoff baseball because, well, hate to bring up that for the Mets, but as the Royals that I mentioned, when you put the ball in play and you got guys that can run a little bit, shit can happen sometimes. And that's how the Royals were able to win a World Series against the Mets. If you remember that one in like 2015, I think it was, or so. God, the Mets have been in a World Series more recently than the Cardinals, and the Mets might make a second world. I mean, not saying that they're going to make it all the way, but if the Mets make it to 2 World Series before the Cardinals make it to theirs, no, it just wouldn't be good. I don't want to think about this anymore. But I think the Padres are really just the team to beat in the entire National League, the American League. I think the Padres are the team to beat. I was at one point I had Braves, Astros. When the Braves kind of started, were they even going to make the playoffs? That's when I kind of discovered the Padres. I was all big on the Astros, and that one blew up in my face. But, you can make a lot of money following a streak. You can only win once going against it. And from 2017 on or 2016 on, whatever it was, they were always in that championship series. Not going to be the year for Houston, and we'll see what happens there. We'll see where Alex Bregman signs. I saw something going, he's the perfect candidate to sign for Colorado to a big contract and never be heard from ever again. I would love the idea of if the Yankees ever signed him. It'd be so hilarious, which we'll get to the Yankees now. Yankees fans, I get it. When your team's not playing, you have to get excited about something. And the Yankees World Series so far was the Astros losing. And I base this on the fact that I went to a couple different locations that day, and everyone was just like, oh yeah, the Astros lost. And I have the whole thing of where it's like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not somebody that vilified the Astros the way that everybody else did, because I also did this weird thing where I didn't just believe the first report I read. I went and researched a little bit more into what exactly happened. And yes, they did break the rules. They did go above and beyond, but if they didn't do it, somebody else probably would have. I mean, again, sign stealing has always been a part of baseball. It's just a matter of how we communicate those messages. But the idea for them to say that Carlos Beltran was the ringleader of that whole group, and for him to come from the Yankees and to come from the Cardinals before he made his way into Houston, or back to Houston, I should say, I just never really felt like throwing stones when I may or may not live in a glass house. And I always find that Matt Adams home run over Clayton Kershaw to be, maybe he knew what was coming, how he knew it was coming. I don't know. Whereas on the other side, as everyone always says about the Astros and the Chapman Altuve bats, look, at the end of the day, whether he knew it was coming or not, the guy hung a slider to him. That pitch gets mashed over the wall an awful lot of time. Now, was he selling out for it? Probably. But, I've seen people break down that pitch at bat where it's pretty much conventional. Most people were like, yeah, this is a pretty obvious slider, counts, but don't really feel like going to that one for you. But this is kind of scary now because, the Yankees fans are excited about that because the Astros have always been the team that has stood in their way. Now it's them and 3 teams in the AL Central who, if the Yankees played the AL Central for an entire season, they'd probably have like 115 wins for all I know. Yankees are just such a tough team to figure out because Rodon he's been an effective starter. I was at a game, which was really annoying because I can't stand that fucking whistle that goes off at Yankee Stadium when they go on, and he had like 10 strikeouts or something, so I had to hear a bunch of that. Garrett Cole is like one of the best pitchers ever in Division Series history. He finished off the year with 2 rocking starts. Gave up like 1 run in 15 innings, albeit against the White Sox and the Athletics, I believe. But hey, they're still major league batters, and I've watched the Athletics do some things over the years or over the season. But they're just in this weird thing of that when I forget the exact stat I'm citing here, but it was something of like the best 2 guys on a team, whatever stat it was they were using for like runs, RBIs, and hits or whatever like that. Basically 1 through 4 was Gehrig and Ruth, and then it's Judge and Soto. They are that good. Judge has been always, he hits home runs in the playoffs, but he does. Stanton's been the guy that's always scared me as somebody who hates the Yankees, because I mean that's the whole thing I look at, is that he's the guy that terrifies me a little bit. Soto is, he's going to make life easy for Judge, is that he's a guy that just finds ways to get on base. He's a proven playoff performer from his 2019 run. I guess 1 year proves that you're good, but we'll see what that's a top heavy lineup. But again, they're facing the Royals right now. The Royals, their bullpen is what's going to do them in, I believe. Although the Yankees, this is where I don't really like the Yankees going forward, is that I've just read too many, and having him on my fantasy team, Clay Holmes is not exactly an automatic guy in the ninth inning. So that kind of scares me a little bit on their sake. And the Royals kind of, again, that's the team of destiny thing. Who knows? I mean, again, they were my pick at 22-1 odds as soon as they signed Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo to win the National League Central. Didn't really pan out, but hey, for a 22-1 ticket to give me the life that it did for as long as it did, that's a sound investment as far as I'm concerned. It got me a little bit more into them. The Twins, they can go fuck themselves. That's how I feel with the NL Central. But I would be shocked if the Yankees don't beat the Royals. That's the one. I mean, there was a period of time where the Royals were the quadruple A team for the Yankees. It just seems like a little bit of mismatch, but we'll see. Cole Reagans, Seth Lugo, that's what they got going on there. Does Wacha pitch game 3 for them? I'm not really sure. I haven't, I could have looked all this stuff up, but that would have taken too much time. Just got to do that, just let it rip. I could always look this up while I'm doing this with you, but that would be for even more boring content. So then we kind of finish this one off with, we have and this I think is going to be an amazing series to watch. I remember one of the games I went to this summer is I went to a Tigers Guardians game, which was fucking amazing because the game only took about like 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. We roasted our balls off in St. Louis or in Pittsburgh earlier in the day, watching the Cardinals suck at baseball, which maybe that made me a couple degrees warmer. I don't know. But then we had, then we went up to Cleveland. That stadium was only like 2/3 filled. And I can just think of, whenever I watch a playoff game in Cleveland, that crowd brings it. This game was it for a Pirates or for a Tigers, Guardians, Indians, whatever the hell we're going to call them. They are the Guardians. I do the slip of the Indians. I try to do the Guardians thing if I can help it because that's what it says in the jersey. But, if I make the slip up, well, so be it. I'm almost senile. I'm going to be 40 years old next year. All right. But that's just, I don't even know how to bring that. I mean, the Tigers, what they're doing is just, I don't even know if they really thought this was going to work. They just had to finish out a season. They trade their ace. They benched their fucking high-priced shortstop, Javi Baez, who God knows whatever the hell happened to his career. And it was just kind of, they had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. And then basically they just started doing, okay, Scooble, you pitch your turn, and then we'll just kind of piece it together for the rest of them with this 11-man bullpen. And that's been working for them. And don't mess with it if it's working. And as their manager, AJ Hint said, he's like, somebody let the Tigers get hot. I think that they're going to meet their match a little bit with Cleveland because that's kind of how Cleveland look at, Jose Ramirez can carry a baseball team. He's that good. Josh Naylor seems to have a flair for the dramatics in the postseason. Again, Guardians are a team that don't really strike out a ton. They put the ball in play. Things happen. They're a small ball kind of team, I would say. And the fact of that with Clase and Gaddis, I believe his name is Hunter Gaddis, whatever. The two guys that pitched the 8th and the 9th inning, they're playing a 7-inning game. If you get to the 7th and you're behind on them, good luck. That's all I can say to you. And that stuff kind of matters to me. And honestly, I looked at it. They won 50-31 at home. And I was kind of with that environment that I was there. I'm like, yeah, how do they lose a game here ever? Tigers, they kind of remind me of the Cardinals of this year of that. I think they were leader in their home runs, didn't even have 20 home runs, which sounds like some of the Cardinals would have done this year. I think Cardinals may have had, I think Goldie may have gotten like 22 or 23, but when you don't have 25 home runs on a Major League Baseball team and you didn't have injuries to complain about and you have 2 perennial MVP candidates, or at least they were before they got to St. Louis, that you just expect a little bit more out of it, I guess. I got to go with the Guardians in that one, but then I think that the Guardians can take it to the Yankees. They're not scared of the Yankees. They get up for the Yankees. And I can just tell you right now, when the Guardians are not playing, everybody's favorite team in Cleveland is whoever the Yankees are playing. I always remember the first time I saw Albert Pujols in person. I watched them. They lost that game actually it was the Indians then. And then me and my buddy that I was in Cleveland with, we went to a bar, and it was actually a Subway Series game between the Yankees and the Mets. And that was the infamous game where A-Rod hit the pop-up and Luis Castillo dropped it, and the Yankees won on that one. Watching the behavior of everybody in the bar that we were at, you would have thought that everybody just lost, and maybe it's possible they did, lost a ton of money on the Mets that game. That's how angry everybody was with the Yankees. Shit, I remember the first bar I walked into Cleveland, the bar was replaying the game with where Jabba and the bugs there, or whatever the hell those things were in the field. That game was on a replay, and for all I know, they just have that on an endless loop in that bar. And people sometimes probably sit down and don't leave for a couple days if it's a good enough bar. I mean, I think that the bar's closed there at some point, but I don't really remember a lot about my trip to Cleveland. I will say a little sidebar on that one. When I do eventually pass away at some point, which hopefully is like 40, 50 years from now or something, or, who knows, if a certain person wins the election, maybe I'll want it to be sooner, but I say that tongue in cheek, maybe, but I just remember we were at some bar and I was talking to a cougar of some form. And that was when I didn't have the greatest, I wasn't the greatest guy in my 20s, but I was chatting with some female. My buddy said he was, kind of just watching, seeing what's going on here. And he said that I leaned into her and I said something to her. And he said that the look on her face as to what I said to her, he was just like, she just went and just walked away from me. And then apparently drunken me walks over to him and he says, "Hey, what did you just say to her?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it." And then he asked me the next day and I didn't remember anything about it. When I go to the afterlife, I would love it. It would be the greatest way, whether I go to heaven or hell or in between or wherever there is in the world, in the afterlife. Can you show me the replay of all of the blackouts that I had in my life? Because from the ages of like going back like 16 to 36, maybe 30. Yeah, 30. What year did I quit drinking? 37, I think I was when I quit drinking. Yeah. So I was 37 when I did that. 38, we'll call it for real, actually. There would be a lot of entertainment to find out what drunken buffoonery I was up to. And for the most part, I don't think I was ever too bad, but probably, my words can sometimes be a little bit much for people, I would say. But that's how I feel about Cleveland there. I think that Cleveland can, so we'll go Cleveland Padres. Let's do it. And then actually, and then at that point, well, Padres to win it all. That's where I'm going there. I got to figure out something. Listen, I got this scrolling record on here. This is week 5 of this pickup against the spread contest, which I made money in last year. I've been priding myself saying I routinely can pick above the 52.4% threshold in the NFL. I'm behind the ball right now. I'm 8-12, 40%. Awful, awful. Thankfully, I haven't been losing money in the NFL, though. For the most part, haven't really been playing a lot of the picks that I'm making for the contest. I'm really not betting a lot of those. And to be honest with you, I don't even have any. I've taken the fun out of betting a little bit because what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to make money? Are we trying to be a genius? Are we trying to know who's going to be the winning team? Whether I make a bet in the third quarter of a game or before the game starts, they still pay me the same. Okay. That's the way I look. In-game wagering. Made a really, really aggressive play on Monday night, which I really, really, really had to sweat out. Watching the Dolphins against the Titans, it was very, very obvious to me that the Dolphins, well, at the time I thought were never going to score a touchdown. Well, then the Titans kind of pulled ahead a little bit. And just give me an idea about this one, by the way. Will Levis is a terrible or Mason Rudolph is not a good NFL quarterback. We have years of evidence to prove that. After watching Will Levis and then watching Mason Rudolph, he makes Mason Rudolph look like above average almost. That's how bad Will Levis is. Just absolutely just a comedy of errors. I mean, if you're going to watch bad football, at least have it be entertaining, and Will Levis provides all the entertainment. On the other side of things, though, you got a guy that got cut from the Ravens that got signed a week ago that's starting an NFL game. Tyler Huntley just did not have a chance out there. So I was just kind of like, they're not getting in the fucking end zone. Looked at the time. I want to say this was sometime around like the third quarter or so. The team total for the Dolphins was 12.5. And I'm like, perfect. They just can't get in the end zone. That's all I need to, don't get in the end zone. The Titans pulled away where suddenly the Dolphins kicking field goals was ruled out there. But then thankfully they got up by 16, which meant that if the Dolphins were going to score a touchdown, for me to lose, they were going to not only have to score a touchdown, but get a 2-point conversion. Surely enough, the Dolphins scored a fucking touchdown. And now all of a sudden, oh shit, we're kind of in a little bit of a crisis mode right here. Am I about to lose more than I would normally like to bet on an in-game wager on fucking something, me just thinking I'm that smart? And then thankfully, Tyler Huntley, he made one good pass in a row. He couldn't make 2. He threw an interception, and then we cashed that one home. That one was good. The other way I'm making my money is I've been pushing this one for a while. The games are terrible. Football is different. I'm seeing a trend going on here. Again, we're in a small sample size on the scale of things, but the best bet as I look at it, or the easiest way for me to turn a profit. And again, it's going to bite me in the face one of these weeks. I'm going to go really, really over, but just taking every team, you can go into winning margin, whether it be on FanDuel or DraftKings. In DraftKings, it's under the game props section. In FanDuel, there's just literally a tab, winning margin. You can take each team, okay, to win by 1 to 6 points. Typically on a close game, the spread, the way the odds work on that one is the favorites, you'll get about 3 to 1 for winning one by 1 to 6 points. The underdog, you'll get somewhere between plus 350 and to plus 400 on that, depending on the variance of the spread. That's kind of like the low level of where you're going on there. When you get into more blowout matches, like for example, the Jets and the Broncos, well, when the Jets are a 7.5 point favorite, there was like plus 400 money on them, I believe it was, to win by 1 to 6. But on the Broncos side of things, it was like plus 650. Now, I in my right mind would never have bet the fucking Broncos to win that game. But if I look at the fact of that, so many of these games are finishing by 6 points or less in the NFL. And it's going back from 2000 to 2024, the start of the season, I believe, that hit it like a 30, almost a 38% clip, which means in gambling parlance is that if you're getting around a mean of plus 170 or so, that means you're making a plus EV wager. I don't like to talk like one of these fucking betting pros or anything like that. I'm not that. I'm just not a, I like to say, I'm not that sharp, but I'm also not square. By doing that, I take a lot of the work out of the games and I just hammer every game, just put a unit on all of them and just sit back and collect. And that's worked for me the last 2 weeks right now. In fact, I just charted it for the NFL season because of last night's Thursday night game, which finished by 6 points in overtime. We're actually 51% almost, 50.8, I believe is the exact number of NFL games this year have finished by 6 points or less. Is it dumb luck? I don't know. I got a little bit of a bank to freaking burn and to get burned on. But as far as trying to pick any of these matchups on a week-to-week basis where it's just like we don't know what we're getting week to week, or some teams are getting better as far as, okay, like they're coming along. But also we don't really even have enough ways to evaluate their competition. I just think that's been the way to play it. Because I'm sitting here, I can't come up with fucking 5 picks right now. Shit. The pick that I like the most this week is the fucking Cleveland Browns getting 3.5 points from the fucking Commanders. And I have this old expression, bad things happen when you bet bad teams. I think that the Browns are a bad team, but I'm also kind of going, okay, that just is one of those ones of that. It's nice if you have access to people that don't know what they're doing, but bet money. I guarantee you that's going to be one of the most popular bet games on there. It's going to be Commanders or Commanders money line on there. And if everybody's on one way, I typically like to be the other. And here's the other thing I love about playing the 1 to 6 thing. Everybody always has the whole thing at the end of a football game where they're like, oh, the fix was in, because there'll be the backdoor meaningless touchdown, or there's going to be that the time where the team that could go ahead goes down at the 1 yard line. Everybody else that's playing a spread, that fucks them over. If I'm trying to stay within 1 to 6 points, that usually means I win. When everybody else is suffering and I'm prospering, that's a great feeling, I guess I must say. I don't want people to suffer, but I do want me to prosper. But again, if you just wanted to learn and listen, I've told that to a bunch of people, this strategy that I'm doing. I finally got my one buddy in St. Louis that's on board with this one. Of course, he goes 0-3 for the first ones and then forgets about it last night. So now he's, we'll see. Maybe he's bad luck. He's actually brought this up to me. I hope that he is not the case, but anyways, just pick everybody to win by 1 to 6. And then when you do make a couple bucks on here, I'll put my Venmo on here. You can send me a couple bucks, or we'll figure out a way to get a donation. And then I'll maybe invest it back into the business here, or maybe I'll just go to the casino with it and invest it there, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I can't. 5 games to win here, and I'm just kind of like, I don't get anything out of picking it in there. And I'm not watching enough games to really, I'm not watching them live. I'm watching these highlight recaps where you get some idea of something, but watching the game in the flow, you get a little bit better of a feeling of it. And with my schedule that, until something happens, I'm still going to have to go to that job 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, because, well, it's my primary source of income. And, maybe if I wasn't such a fucking idiot in my 20s, I could maybe scale it back a little bit, but we'll do that. But anyways, just kind of ranted and raved for an hour, because instead of me being stoned and not making any sense, I was sober and just kind of ranted and raved like a lunatic. But that's how we do it here in the Scho-Zone. I'm actually going to be making an appearance on a podcast on Wednesday. I think it's called the Public Access Show. Curious to see how it goes. I really just had like a 2-second little chat with this guy. I over through Facebook said, hey, I'd like to be a guest. Did a Zoom call. I talked his ear off while I was getting ready to actually have an actual conversation. all he said to me was going, I just wanted to make sure that you're somebody that would be able to talk. And I don't think we have to worry about that. So I'll post some info on that one. But everybody, thank you for tuning into this one. And then, like I said, I'm going to try to maybe start doing, we're going to see how the first video goes with me posting the blackjack after the fact. Maybe we'll try a live stream. Hopefully don't get copyrighted, but we'll see if that's the thing that builds up the following here. You got somebody here watching. Thank you for tuning in, but I'm about to finish up here. If you want to drop me a comment, though, if anything nice to say or how you found me, whether you like this or not. Nope, you're gone. Peace out of here. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Peace.